asking your healthcare provider if an oral treatment is right for you. Learn about a treatment option at treatcv19.com. This message is sponsored by Pfizer.
This is your captain speaking. You better buckle your seatbelts for this one. I noticed my passport was due to expire, so I went to Staples. I got a passport photo in 10 minutes, so we're good to go.
Now at Staples, get 20% off travel products when you purchase a passport photo. Get travel ready at Staples, your one-stop travel prep destination.
Hey, let me tell you about another time that Staples saved my caboose. That all started back.
N731, in-store only. Excludes Instacart orders, certain products, services, and technology. See staplesconnect.com/services/travel for details.
KCAA. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show on KCAA. We'll be right back after this message from our sponsor, Teamsters 1932, a strong union with 14,000 members in the IE. Go to Teamsters1932.org for more information. Are you underpaid and overworked? Is a living wage and employee benefits like affordable health care more of a dream than a reality for you and your family? If so, it's time to form a union. Don't be denied the wages and benefits you deserve. Come together in a union with the power of numbers. A union is not a privilege, it's your right, and it will make a difference. Contact Teamsters Local 1932, a powerful and successful labor union in San Bernardino, by visiting Teamsters1932.org/organize to start today. Are you underpaid and overworked? Is a living wage and employee benefits like affordable health care more of a dream than a reality for you and your family? If so, it's time to form a union. Don't be denied the wages and benefits you deserve. Come together in a union with the power of numbers. A union is not a privilege, it's your right, and it will make a difference. Contact Teamsters Local 1932, a powerful and successful labor union in San Bernardino, by visiting Teamsters1932.org/organize to start today.
Located in the heart of San Bernardino, California, the Teamsters Local 1932 Training Center is designed to train workers for high-demand, good-paying jobs in various industries throughout the Inland Empire. If you want a pathway to a high-paying job and the respect that comes with a union contract, visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org. Are you looking for a good union job? The Inland Empire's 14,000 member strong Teamsters Local 1932 has opened a training center to get working people trained and placed in open positions in public service clerical work and in jobs in the logistics industry. This is a new opportunity to advance your career and raise standards across the region. Visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org. One of the best ways to build a healthier local economy is by shopping locally. Teamster Advantage is a shop local program started by Teamster Local 1932 that has brought together hundreds of locally owned businesses to provide discounts for residents who make shopping locally their priority. Everything from restaurants like Corky's to fun times at SB Raceway and much, much more. If you're not currently a Teamster and you want access to these local business discounts, contact Jennifer at 909-889-8377, extension 224. Give her a call. That number again is 909-889-8377, extension 224.
Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Hope everyone had a good 4th of July weekend. I know ExxonMobil did. They're going to celebrate their what's looking like their most profitable quarter ever. In fact, their second quarter profits are going to double their first quarter profits. So what's not to be thrilled about? And then look, they got Joe Biden to blame for it. Because we're stupid. We're buying it. Everybody I talk to, Joe Biden's fault. Now prices falling a little bit in our area. They did drop the gas tax a little bit, which I think is a dumb idea, but got to look like you're doing something. A couple of pennies coming down. Nobody's saying, hey, look what Joe Biden did. But there you go. So good today. The president was in my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, giving a really fantastic speech, I thought, where Democrats need to live. Where Biden was today on the spiel, where Democrats need to find. That's the wheelhouse where he was at. Talking about work, talking about jobs, talking about union jobs, talking about government encouraging workers to join and form unions, talking about when unions do well, everyone does well. We've got a strong, vibrant labor movement. That means that, well, we have a growing, prosperous working class, and then that illusionary middle class we love to talk about. That gets to grow too, so we get to pretend like, oh, we're better than just working people. Yeah, that's where they need to spend a lot of time. And he spent time talking about what kind of an economy he wants to move us back towards. Kind of the thing that he grew up in. A little nostalgic for when he was a younger man, you know. Dignity. He talked about dignity on the job. Again, you don't hear many Democrats talking like that these days. And finally hitting after Rick Scott and the plan to basically just wipe out Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, wipe out every government program. Because, hey, you know, our Senate is so functional that every 5 years, you know they're going to reauthorize Social Security every 5 years, right? You feel comfortable with that? It's about time that they went after the Rick Scott plan, went after the words that Republicans have been saying, because we're in a moment, folks, where maybe, I'm gonna put a big maybe there. Maybe people are going to listen to what the Republicans are actually saying now that the dog did catch the car. They've been saying for years they're going to overturn Roe. They've been saying for years they're going to criminalize abortion. They want to lock women up. They've been saying this stuff. They've been saying this for years. They've been, you know, the lockup part a little quieter, but it's been there. And now people, I hope, saying maybe when they say something, we should. I don't know. Maybe listen. Maybe listen to them when they say, yes, we're going to destroy Social Security. Yes, we're going to destroy Medicare. Yes, we're going to take that Medicaid away. Yes, we're going to shatter what's left of the social contract. We're going to rip up and shred the social safety net. Yes, we're going to do all that stuff. It really is going to be, you are on your own. And the president was in Cleveland today talking about what I think is one of his good accomplishments. One of his great accomplishments, and that's the American Rescue Plan. And out of that, the Butch-Lewis Act. For those who don't know, the Butch-Lewis Act was a very small piece of the American Rescue Plan that was going to help a couple million retiree workers whose pensions were about ready to be just eviscerated for a bunch of reasons. Some of it just having to do with, hey, Wall Street screwed them. Some of it have to do with industries that have just gone away. Some of it has gone, a lot of it has been the deunionization that's gone on in this country. But the multi-employer pension funds that had been struggling, now going to get an infusion of cash to be able to keep them afloat, to keep these retirees so that they can have dignity into their retiring years. And that's an important word, I think, for working people. Dignity, something maybe we should reclaim, something maybe we should think about, maybe we should talk about. Because we're hearing it from a lot of people who are organizing unions right now. Yeah, it's about wages, it's about hours, it's about conditions, about all that stuff. Yeah. But it's about dignity, it's about respect. It's about power. And this is where the Democratic Party better get their heads out of their keisters, and the labor movement had better start talking the talk again. Had better get out of their ways and harness this power of people wanting that dignity and demanding that respect and demanding that power. And good on Biden today for hammering on that. It's important, and talking about the things that his generation, him growing up, and look, I remember my grandparents having the same kind of conversations. I remember, as a kid, you have money worries, and he talked about, do you have enough money to pay for the things you need? Not for what you want, for what you need. And how do you make sure that you have an economy that does that? I mean, we don't talk enough about this. And, I look at the world that we're in, and the weekend we just had. Wow. And a lot of people, opining about why we have all of these shootings and why we have all of this upheaval and why all of this division and this hatred and all this. And for me, it comes back to the simple stuff. It comes back to greed. It comes back to 40 plus years of supply side voodoo Reaganomics. Hooray for me and the heck with everyone else. The ones who dies with the most toys wins. Gordon Gekko's greed is good. For me, that's the central part of all this. Now, I know the crazy right-wingers, no, it's abortion. No, it's this. No, it's that social compact has been just crushed with hooray for me and the heck with everyone else. I want mine. And this is where we end up in a situation where you don't care about anybody else. And we've raised a generation of kids who it's all about the self. It's all about go get yours. And don't think about your neighbor. Don't think about your community. Don't think about being part of this country. And then whenever anything does happen, well, it's yours. And if someone else wants theirs, well, they're stealing from you. Now you got to take it back. And it's this kind of mentality that I think has put us in this position. And Biden was talking a little bit today about, hey, how do we rebuild an economy that works for everybody? How do we ensure that work is rewarded, that we reshore manufacturing and that those jobs create, the prosperity across communities? I mean, it was one of the better speeches he's given because it was Joe Biden being Joe Biden. It was him just connecting with his people. And his handlers need to get him out doing more of that. Because that's the message. That's what's winning. Not the divisive stuff, not the stuff that rips us apart. But how do we move forward together? How do we get that dignity and respect? How do we ensure that our kids get the things that they need? This is the moment. Now, why he was there in Ohio talking about the Butch Lewis Act, and it's the final stage of finalizing all of the money in the process of getting these pensions restored, because some of the people saw their pensions being cut almost 70% in retirement. And you go, you spend your entire life working, and this is part of that dignity and respect. You spend your entire life working, deferring compensation, deferring wages, giving things up, going, you know what, I'm going to retire, I'm going to have security, I'm going to be able to play with the grandkids, I'm going to be able to do what I want, go golf or do whatever. And then when you're in the middle of your retirement, they go, oh, sorry, we're broke. The economy in 2008 took a major nosedive. The industry that you were in, they went belly up. The companies didn't make contributions for a couple of decades. And now you, the individual, you and your family, you and your spouse, you and your grandkids, you are going to have to bear the burden. And this is where Biden really, I think, connected. That's wrong. And this is where we as a society have to say, that's wrong. We bail out these huge multinational corporations all the time. Every time a bank gets into trouble, what happens? In comes the Commerce Department with the Treasury with the checkbook. But when working people get into trouble, well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, tighten the belt a little bit. And again, this is another one of those moments for all those working people out there who go, oh, the Republicans are, they're the party of the working class. This Butch-Lewis Act has been being talked about in its form that got passed since 2017. But understand, this issue has been going on since 2009 when Bob Casey was championing it. I remember, following him around for a couple of weeks as he was stumping on this. Because this was one of those issues that me, as someone in a multi-employer pension fund, said, hey, this is kind of important that we make sure that those are secure with the same kind of safety net underneath it that at least other pensions get, as minimal as they are. Now, I'm a believer in every pension should be secured. If we're going to secure the Wall Street crowd, we should secure the Main Street crowd first. But no Republican got on board with this. This was going on all during the Trump years. And there had been talk that Trump may have signed it. Didn't push for it. No Republicans wanted it. No Republicans were willing to move forward on it. And nothing. Lip service, lots of that. We got lots of that out of the Republicans and out of Donald Trump. Infrastructure week, every week, no infrastructure. What did you get out of Biden? Well, we got a $1 trillion infrastructure plan that's going to put people to work. It's going to rebuild our infrastructure with that resource. Things being done. Now, look, inflation, bad everywhere. Not just here, globally. This is not a Biden problem. This is a global problem. This is a pandemic problem. This is a we let the smart people run the economy for far too freaking long problem. This is a problem of we let the business schools, who are the really smart folks, rig the economy for themselves and using working people as just tools. But Biden's trying to do some different things. And this is where I would say to working people, there is somebody in the White House who cares. Cares about you, cares about your family, cares about your work, cares about your communities. I can't say that about the last guy. And I looked at this speech today, and I highly suggest people take a look at it because it was good. I mean, he was spot on. Talked about Mitch McConnell holding the country hostage because, hey, sorry, we can't get the CHIPS bill passed because McConnell doesn't want to negotiate for prescription drug prices. And it's what Republicans have done masterfully for years. Even though they have no power, they gum up the system to where nothing for the working class can ever be done. And Mitch McConnell says that, well, there's a labor shortage going on. And the way you deal with a labor shortage, his quote was, you've got a whole lot of people sitting on the sidelines. He goes, frankly, they're flush for the moment. What we've got to hope is that once they run out of money, they'll start concluding it's better to go to work than not to work. So basically the $1,400 that Biden gave him, I guess McConnell claims they're still flush with from a year and a half ago. I don't know what world McConnell lives in. I know his wife's married to, he's married to a Chinese shipping magnate's daughter. So, I know he's not hurting for cash. But $1,400 doesn't go as far as Mitch McConnell thinks. And this idea that working people are flush with cash, ridiculous. Still going on the frame of, we gave those unemployed $600 extra a week for those 3 months. They still must have some of it in the mattress. Where exactly does McConnell live? Oh, yeah, in a mansion. He knows nothing about what average working people go through. But this is the talking point, to divide us. Oh, they won't take those crummy minimum wage jobs because, well, they're not desperate enough. And that's what they want. They want desperate people. They want you, me, our fellow workers to be desperate at every turn. Why? So they can keep paying crappy wages, terrible benefits. Question is, going to put up with it. That's why this election cycle, this coming election, really kind of very important. Really important. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. We'll take a quick break, right back on the other side. Stick around. You listen to The Rick Smith Show.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
So some interesting polling data out from the young folk. The Mammoth poll just out. 18 to 34-year-olds have Biden an approval rating of 28%. Not great. A disapproval rating of 63%. Not great at all. But when asked the question, would you rather see Democrats or Republicans control Congress? That's where it gets interesting. 59% would prefer Democrats. 34% would prefer Republicans. So this idea that there's a red wave coming, I don't know. Not quite so sure, especially now in the post-Roe era. The latest polling coming out now sees a massive shift. I pointed out what was going on with Mammoth, but you look at when they asked a couple other questions about, since the Supreme Court overturned Roe, how are you looking at things? There has been a major shift in the polling. The Marist poll, the Mammoth poll, the Yahoo YouGov poll, Politico, all of them have shown between 3 and 5%, with the Marist poll 10% shift towards Democrats. So when the dog caught the car, they may have given away the red wave. And as Trump is about to announce what he's going to do, he could throw even more of a fly into the ointment there. Going to be an interesting election season, because you ask anybody, nobody's happy with what's going on, but the Republicans aren't giving anything of any real substance to go on. And you look at what just happened over the 4th of July weekend. I mean, the shooting in Illinois, Philadelphia. You can't even go to a freaking 4th of July celebration without worrying about some lunatic with a gun, who got it legally, by the way. And a lot of the stories that I was reading, they made it sound like, the shooter in Illinois could have been stopped. Well, there was all these things, there was all these signs. There is no mechanism for that. It's the reason that we keep trying to pass laws and Republicans keep stopping. We've had, what was it, 309 mass shootings this year already? And, as I was thinking about it over the weekend, I'm going, what could be more American? Over my last couple of days, I'm going, yeah, here it is. This is sadly who we are, and I'm tired of the speeches. I'm tired of enough is enough. I'm tired of, we got to do more. I'm tired of it. Clearly, this is what we want. I'm tired of hearing the stories of the heartbreaking story of the child in Illinois whose both parents were murdered. And tired of it. Until we're ready to act, until we're ready to do something. Now, look, the president, going to sign something. We're going to get something. Is it going to stop this stuff? I hope. But for me, it comes back down to just more than just the gun issue. It comes back down to the societal issue. When you have a religion that is about fear and anger and hatred, when your political leaders are some of the most fire-breathing bomb throwers, I don't see hope. And this is one of those conversations I had this weekend. I'm going, with one of the people that I share, thoughts with. I'm like, there are times when you just get tired and you just want to drop out. You just want to go, you know what? I'm done. I can't take it anymore. I just want to go find a, something and dig a ditch. And they're like, no, you can't. That's what they want. And now is not the time to turn away. Now is not the time to throw up our hands in disgust or despair. Now is the time to get more active, to get angrier. And I don't know how much more angry I can get at the fact that we're not doing enough to protect ourselves from these situations. And you go, well, what would you do? Well, you start with rethinking virtually everything we do. Conservatism has been a failed experiment. The Reagan Revolution brought us this. This is what greed, this is what hooray for me and the heck with everyone else. This is what it brought us. When the individual is sacrosanct, when it's just all about me. This is where the problem is. At least that's my thought. Love to hear yours. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, Joe Walsh, former Illinois congressman, is going to be here to share some of his thoughts on the weekend that was. Also, maybe get some of his thoughts on the subpoenas that went out and maybe some of the testimony they're going to come up with the January 6th committee. Quick break. Right back with Joe Walsh. Stick around.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
So I guess 4th of July weekend, very American. I guess this is the new thing. They're saying, according to CBS News, at least 220 people were killed and 570 wounded. So I guess that's is that where we're going? Is that the 4th of July that we want every year? I mean, 220 people killed. 507. I'll tell you, just wow, tiring. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the weekend that was and maybe what we do about it. I've asked our good friend Joe Walsh, former Illinois congressman, 2020 Republican presidential candidate, and host of White Flag with Joe Walsh podcast. Joe, thanks for taking time for us.
Rick, my brother, always good to be with you, man.
So I'm looking at these numbers, and I got to tell you, heartbreaking, angering, and as I said in the last segment, it's one of those things that makes me want to just go into a hole and just shield myself off from reality.
Don't. Look, you and I have talked about this issue of guns before. I am a big gun guy. I am from my cold, dead hands kind of a gun rights advocate. Ted Cruz is a jerk. And I remember after Uvalde, Ted Cruz was asked by some reporter, how come this is a uniquely American problem? All of these shootings and killings by guns. And of course, Cruz avoided the question. Look, I'm a big gun guy. I'll answer. We have a hell of a lot of guns. What makes America different? We have a crap load of guns in this country, and we have a big gun culture. That's just the fact, Rick. Now, I don't think that's going to change at all. So the question is, what do we do about this?
So what do we do about it? I mean, look, I look at, I look at the kid who did the shooting, and I go, I don't know that this is a person I want having guns, let alone access to numerous guns, and
no, and Rick, you're right. He shouldn't have, and this should be the one place where all of us on the right and the left come together and say, do whatever we can to make sure that a guy who shouldn't get a gun doesn't get a gun. So do whatever we can before a gun is bought. That should be our focus. You look at this guy on July 4th in Highland Park, Illinois. I mean, there were laws on Illinois is my home state, Rick. Very strict gun law state. They've got universal background check. They've got a red flag law. The red flag law was not enforced. This guy shouldn't have gotten a gun. Cops came to his house in 2019, in September of 2019, because he threatened to kill everybody. What did the cops do? They took away all the knives he had, and he had a sword. He didn't have guns at the time. But that incident was not sent to the Illinois State Police. Uh-oh, this guy's a threat. And you know why that's a problem, Rick? Because 2 months later, he applied to get his firearms owner identification card in Illinois that his father co-signed for. He never should have gotten that FOID card because that incident should have come up. So the laws on the books in Illinois were not enforced. That's a problem.
And now, do we go after the father as well? I mean, at some point, there's got to be accountability in all of this.
Agreed. I don't know what I got to watch my language. What in God's name was up with this guy's old man? Again, there were red flags everywhere. Cops came to their house twice. The guy showed videos of himself killing people. He painted something on the side of his house that he lived in with his dad of a guy shooting people, and yet the father still signed the FOID card to allow this kid to get a gun. Yeah, the old man should be held accountable.
How much? Now I look at this, and again, there were guns around when I was a kid, and like I said, I've lived in two very different worlds when it comes to guns. I grew up in a housing project where if you saw somebody walking down the street with a gun, run because somebody was going to die. And I would argue that person probably was going to deserve it because there was some kind of conflict. There was something interpersonal. They weren't just going to shoot up a room full of people for no reason. This is a foreign concept to me. I now live in a neighborhood where if you see somebody with a gun, they're probably going to the free gun range, just a mile from my house, or hunting or something else. So I understand the differences in the cultures. I understand the differences of the uses. But this, I'm going to go and I'm going to shoot into a crowd randomly. I'm going to go cause chaos. This is something I don't worse in my view.
And Rick, this is something new as of the last 20 years, these mass shootings. So something has changed. We have always had a hell of a lot more guns than the rest of the world, but we have not had this problem. We have not had this mass shooting problem really since the last 20 to 30 years. So it does have to do with our culture. It does have to do with mental health. It does have to do with communities and families and law enforcement not looking out for each other, no doubt about it. But Rick, it also has to do with the fact that, and I say this as a big gun guy, who doesn't want to ban any firearms, because let's remind everybody, 99.9% of all gun owners in this country are responsible gun owners, but we do a lousy job in this country of making sure somebody who shouldn't get a gun doesn't get one. So we need to make our background check process better, and we need to enforce these red flag laws.
Yeah, and I think you need to hold people more accountable when things do happen.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Joe Walsh, former Illinois congressman and host of the White Flag with Joe Walsh podcast. Make sure you check that podcast out. We'll get links out on social media. How much do you think this...
And by the way, Rick, on that point, the point you just made, holding people accountable when they commit a crime with a gun, we do a crappy job of that in this country. Again, I come from outside Chicago, any major city in this country, right? Those gangbangers on the south side of Chicago, those are not responsible gun owners. They didn't purchase those guns legally. They commit crimes with those guns, and oftentimes they're right back out on the street in a few days, and oftentimes they never get caught to begin with.
No, I don't disagree. But the question is, how'd they get the guns, and where'd those guns come from, and who's been tracking them, and all kinds of questions then come up with that. Because I know people who go, oh, well, I must have lost my gun, or someone stole my gun. How do you lose your... Whole other question. How much of this then do you think comes back to our politicians? Because I want to get to this Eric Greitens, who evidently has a new gun ad out, which I think is just childish. It's ridiculous. I don't think it has anywhere in political discourse to be. But hey, this is where he is staking his ground. Have you seen this one?
Yeah.
How much of this plays into this kind of I don't know, this kind of mentality that we're at war, this war mentality against people you disagree with, so that we're dehumanizing each other on different sides to where it's okay to go shoot into a crowd?
So I'm no longer a Republican. And I've said often that the base of my former political party is fully radicalized. They no longer believe in truth. They've given up on democracy. They want a strong man to rule them, and they want their political enemies destroyed and or killed. This is a real dangerous problem on the right. And Fox News and people like Tucker Carlson feed it. And these politicians running for office, pictures of themselves shooting people with guns, that feeds it as well.
No, I mean, it doesn't say anything about what he wants to do to make the country better. It doesn't say anything about policy. And I guess it just shows that they're devoid of any policy. And what it really is it's all just show. It's all just projection.
And because I come from the Republican base, Rick, and I still talk to these voters all the time, it's really never been about policy since Trump. They just want somebody who will fight the people they don't like. So now you're seeing Greitens and some of these other candidates. And look, why is DeSantis so popular? Because he's a jerk and he fights. Yeah. That's what they want.
No, I've said that for years. Democrats, the line I've used for years is, in a street fight, Democrats will offer to hold your coat, and that's been a problem. And they better figure out how to ball up their little digits and get in there and take a couple of swings. Now, I do want to get some of your thoughts on some of the subpoenas that are coming out. Let's start with the Atlanta down in Georgia. Evidently, Lindsey Graham has refused. He's going to refuse to cooperate with the subpoena. Any thoughts there? Is that going to matter?
I've always thought, Rick, that of every crime Trump committed, of every crime he committed when it came to the 2020 election, the one that might really get him is what he did in Georgia. When, again, to remind everybody listening to us, the President of the United States called the Secretary of State of Georgia and pressured the Secretary of State of Georgia to overthrow Georgia's election. Find me 11,780 votes. Do it. Mark Meadows was privy to that. Lindsey Graham put pressure on the Georgia Secretary of State. I've always thought that Trump and his people are in trouble on this one.
Yeah. But, what I found interesting that came out of the January 6th hearing is, Trump said he won Georgia by 400,000 votes. If you won by 400,000 votes, why didn't you ask for 400,000 votes?
Because everything out of his mouth is a lie. Period. Yeah.
But do you think this is going to matter? Do you think these subpoenas are going to amount to anything? Do you think this is going to take it anywhere?
I don't. I still don't believe he'll be indicted. I could be wrong. I think these hearings are having a minuscule impact on his political fortunes with the Republican Party. And Rick, I expect Trump to come out in early August and announce he's running for re-election.
Yeah, I expect him to do the same thing. And do you think that'll help or hurt the Republicans in November?
It probably won't make a difference. I think the Democrats I think their goose is kind of cooked for November, especially when it comes to the House, no matter what. And look, Republicans will probably take back the House, maybe the Senate. And if Trump's already out there as the announced presidential candidate, you know him, he'll take credit for it.
No, of course he will. And I also understand that Pat Cipollone is going to testify before the January 6th committee. Is this going to matter?
Well, it should, because he's the guy who told everybody around Trump that we're breaking. I'll tell you what, we're breaking every law under the book with what we're doing. We can presume that he gave that advice to Trump as well. Now, it will not be a televised deposition. I think it's just going to be. I don't think there'll be cameras. But if he's under oath, Rick, I would think the information he's going to convey will just, again, will make the case that we all know needs to be made, that Trump did what he did.
Yeah, I hope that at some point they make all of the interviews available that they did, because there are a couple of them that I would sit and watch all of them through. The Hirschman interview for certain.
Yeah.
Bill Barr, I would sit and watch that. There are a bunch of them that I would want to see from start to finish. To get all of the context and all of that. I wonder if that'll ever happen.
I don't know if it can. And again, regarding Cipollone this Friday, he's got a specific agreement with these two. I'm sure that with the committee, I'm sure that's part of it. If it can ever, I don't even know if there'll be a camera in there. I think maybe there has to be, but I'm sure they have an agreement as to when and if that can ever be shown.
So on the January 6th committee stuff, you don't think this is having any impact? Clearly not with the Trump base. But do you think this is having any impact? Because I look here in Pennsylvania, we've got a guy running for governor who I think is a Nazi. Benito Mastriano, I call him. There are a number of Republicans who are coming out and endorsing the Democrats, saying this guy's just too far off to the fringe. Do you see that possibly happening to the Republicans in other places like Greitens or other places, or are they just that far gone?
I don't think the hearings, Rick, are going to have any impact in 22. I do not think there'll be a Republican, maybe even a Democratic voter who's going to vote on what's going on in these hearings. When you look, and I think it was Pew, somebody came out with just the latest of the most important issues to the American people. And Rick, you know what they are: inflation, the price of gas, the economy, all of that. That's front and center. I think these hearings will impact who the presidential nominees are in 24. I think that's where you'll see an impact.
Going to be an interesting time. I guess last question I have: did you have a reasonable holiday weekend? I didn't ask you that at the beginning, and I should have. Did you have a good week?
No, you didn't need to ask me at first, because you asked me the most important question about Independence Day, and that was the horrible event that played out in Highland Park, Illinois. That aside, and by the way, Rick, Highland Park is my wife's hometown. She grew up there, real close to the congressional district I represented. All of that aside, I had a nice, relaxing Independence Day. How about you, my friend?
I got to do some work with my son. We had a good weekend together, building the fence. Like I said, is the kind of stuff that makes me go, maybe there's life outside of all of this.
There is. There is. Hey, Rick Smith,
Yes,
you're
sir.
a damn good American. I mean that.
Thank you, so you too, Joe. I appreciate it, brother. Thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Rick.
Our good friend Joe Walsh. Make sure you check out his podcast, the White Flag with Joe Walsh podcast. We'll get links out on social media how you can take a look at that. Quick break, right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
I've been driving buses for 5 years, and my day-to-day routine is I wake up a little earlier than most people. I get on a bus, I go out, I pick up some students and make sure they get to school nice and safe. Here in Fairbanks, Alaska, that can be a challenge because of the winter weather and the icy roads, but I love the job. So the Teamsters are great. They provide us a lot of protections. They've always taken care of their people, made sure that our jobs were secure. We didn't have to worry about whether or not we'd have a job from day to day.
And that's amazing because before we'd be working 4, 6, 8 hours a day and only earning minimum wage was real difficult to make a living. Then the Teamsters pushed the law so we make something we can live off of and not have to have a second job. What absolutely gives me peace of mind. The union membership allows me to focus on this job without having to worry about whether or not my family is going to be taken care of. I'm Andrew Case and I'm proud to be Teamsters Local 959.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So crazy abound. I look at Arizona. You got this congresswoman, this Debbie Lesko, who evidently claimed that she'd shoot her own grandchildren. I mean, she's on the floor of the House, giving her little spiel. And, well, here she is.
Arizona is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Representative Jordan. I rise in opposition to H.R. 2377. I have 5 grandchildren. I would do anything to protect my 5 grandchildren, including, as a last resort, shooting them if I had to protect the lives of my grandchildren. Democrat bills that we've heard this week want to take away my right to protect my grandchildren. They want to take away the rights of law-abiding citizens to protect their own children and grandchildren and wives and brothers and sisters. This bill takes away due process from law-abiding citizens. Can you imagine if you had a disgruntled ex or somebody who hates you because of your political views, and they go to a judge and say, oh, this person is dangerous, and that judge would take away your guns, lean on the side of conservatism, take away the guns, without that person even having a knowledge that there was a court hearing that would take away their guns. This is wrong. When Republicans were in the majority, we actually passed legislation that was signed into law that would have prevented mass shootings. These bills would not. We need to join together, Republicans and Democrats. I hope they can do it in the Senate and get something done that actually saves children's lives. And with that, I yield back.
Did I hear her right? She would shoot her own grandchildren to protect them? Gonna save their lives by killing them. Yep, that's what she said. Now, she, obviously people on the social medias went crazy. They had the reaction I'm sure that you had, the reaction that I had. She responded by saying, it never ceases to amaze me the lengths gun control zealots will go. They turned my speech about protecting Second Amendment rights and my right to protect my grandchildren from violent criminals into a claim that I would harm my own grandchildren. Absolutely ridiculous. Did you not hear her say that I would shoot my own grandchildren? Did she not hear those words coming out of her mouth? Now, the other part that I found interesting is she said that when the Republicans were in the majority, and this is the fantasy world that she must live in, because somehow she thinks you can shoot the grandchildren and they'll be okay. There's the other part of this, where what legislation did they pass that was signed into law that protected the children? Where is this? Where is this mythical, where is this stuff? Where is this stuff of which you speak, oh Debbie? Where is this legislation that protected the children in all of the shootings that have happened since that majority you once doth had? Oh, where, oh Debbie, where is it? And did you hear in her voice a little bit? She was even like, oh man, I think I've gotten too crazy here even for me. And yet she is a representative representing thousands of people in Arizona. And I got to wonder, folks of Arizona, good people of Arizona, what is wrong with you? And this is my problem with what's happened to our political system. Characters like Debbie Leskow, Boebert, Green, the rest of them, people who are there for performance sake. No policy initiatives, no ideas, no thoughts, no way of fixing problems, none of that. All just caricatures of human beings. All people who want attention without actually trying to solve problems. And it's going to get worse because the smart people know how to use the dumb. And we've got a bunch of dumb people in Congress. And I've said, look, Trump was bad, but imagine someone who's actually strategically halfway sane. Someone who actually understands how the system works. Someone like Ron DeSantis, who has always concerned me, who now has signed a bill going to require all Florida students and professors to register their political views with the state. You're going to have to declare which party you're with. And I guess what this will be used for is if one school or another has too many of those D kind of folk, they're going to probably lose funding or see tuition increases. You can see this is where we're going. You can see it's where we're going. Because we also found out today that Comey and McCabe, who Donald Trump was not very fond of, both got the most invasive IRS audits possible during the Trump years. Wonder how that happens. It's amazing how the things that Republicans point at Democrats for claiming they were doing, Republicans actually did. It's amazing how that happens. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of our program, make sure you grab the podcast. Never miss a moment. Wherever you get yours, you'll find ours. Make sure you check that out.
It doesn't matter what kind of weather. It doesn't matter what time of day or night. When Mother Nature's done her worst, the only thing that matters to us is keeping the lights on for you. The hardworking women and men of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, dedicated to keeping the power on in communities all across the country. Because when bad weather strikes, we know what matters most. IBEW, the power professionals.
The world is watching as Vladimir Putin uses oil to fund his war in Ukraine. Tragically, we've seen this before. If we rely on foreign dictators and fossil fuels, this cycle will only continue. Starting now, let's decide who makes our energy. By investing in more clean energy right here in America, we can cut off the power of tyrants. Renewable, clean energy. That's real American energy independence.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to finish today up with an email from Janice, who asked the question, says, I've been seeing numerous companies offering women a lifeline in states where abortions are going to be banned. What are your thoughts of these companies, and what is the purpose of them doing this publicly? And you go, this is one of those interesting moments where you go, are they just being good corporate citizens? Are they being good to their workers? Is this something that they really care about women? Or is this a stand? Is this? And there's a lot of positions you go, yeah, this is companies that care about the values of their workers. This is care about democracy, care about all kinds of stuff, and that's the PR spin they want you to take. That these are companies that care and that they care about their employees and they're going to give women options and it's all about them. And then once you get off of that kind of high of, oh my gosh, they care, and you take just not even a full step back, kind of like a half step, just a little bit back, you realize that none of these companies really care. It's about PR. It's about getting attention. It's about spin. It's about it's the public relations game. Because here's the thing: if they truly cared about women, really, if they truly cared about families, if they truly did, they would pay living wages. They would pay health care. They would have retirement security. They would have maternity leave, family leave, so that people could welcome children into the world and do it in a way that wouldn't be a financial burden. That they would have work schedules that would be helpful for families and conducive to raising families and bringing children into the world. So my mindset goes like this. And this is one of those cynical moments. But I'm gonna bet I'm right. They don't want people to take off work for maternity leave. They don't want women getting out of the workforce. So getting a woman an abortion, sending away for a couple of days, paying the travel expenses, a whole lot cheaper than paying for the entire gestation period, all of the health care that goes into it, the birthing process, of all of the money that goes into that, and then finding a replacement, because you're going to get the 12 weeks of unpaid family leave. They do have to pay the medical costs for that time period. But I'm looking at it purely from a bean counter standpoint, and I'm not going to give these companies, I'm not going to give them the attention that they seek. I'm not going to say, oh my God, they're so wonderful. And I haven't. I said, okay, they've said this. I'm always leery of corporate America when they come out and they do something that is perceived as human or decent or right. This is one of those moments. I don't view these companies in that kind of way. That it's not what they're in business for. They're not in business to make your life easier. They're not in business to be good to you. They're in business to make a profit. You're a tool. How can they get the most out of you is how they look at you, and all of us. So for me, that's kind of how I see this. I see this in that light, that this is the cheapest option. This is the dismal science at work going, yes, it's cheaper to send women off, pay the airfare, pay the abortive costs, and get them back to work on Monday and in their desk and doing their job, and don't have to worry about leaving at a certain time because they got kids, and don't have to worry about daycare, and don't have to worry about all of that other stuff that comes with raising a family. And
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM.